When I first saw the debt notice in my name, I thought it was a mistake. But the handwriting on the application, so familiar, so precise, told me otherwise. It was my sister-in-law's. That morning, the sun had barely risen over the narrow alley that led to our small home. I remember the way the light spilled through the kitchen window, cutting through the steam from the kettle. I was stirring sugar into my husband's tea when the courier knocked. He handed me a sealed envelope, brown and thick, with my name written neatly in bold letters, Mrs. Hina Raymond. At first, I smiled politely, thinking it was something official, maybe related to my small boutique business. But as I unfolded the pages, the warmth drained from my face. It was a loan approval notice, for 800,000 rupees, taken from a private lender, in my name, signed apparently by me. I remember my hands trembling. My husband, Arif, was just finishing his breakfast. "What's that?" he asked mid-bite. I couldn't speak. I just handed him the papers. He frowned, scanning them, then looked up at me with disbelief. "Hina, when did you take this?" "I didn't," I whispered. "I swear, Arif, I didn't." There was silence. Only the tick-tick-tick of the kitchen clock. Then he sighed and rubbed his forehead. "Maybe someone used your CNIC. But how would they even get it?" I didn't answer. Because deep down, I already knew who had access to my documents. Ruxana, his elder sister. Before all this, life was quiet, simple, almost predictable. I ran a small home-based boutique, sewing and designing clothes for neighborhood women. I wasn't rich, but I was content. Ruxana often visited our house, sometimes to gossip, sometimes to borrow things, spices, gold bangles, even my sewing machine once. She had a habit of taking without asking, then returning things slightly broken or late. Arif always defended her. "She's family, Hina," he'd say with that patient older brother tone. "You know how she is. She doesn't mean harm." But Ruxana had a way of making me feel small. Her words were sugar-coated but sharp. "Nice dress, Bobby," she'd say, her eyes scanning my stitching. "But customers won't pay much for this kind of work. Maybe you should focus on cooking instead." Still I smiled. Every time. Because peace, I thought, was more valuable than pride. Arif and I had been married for 6 years. We didn't have children yet, but our marriage was steady, built on quiet understanding. We weren't the romantic, hand-holding type, but we were partners. I trusted him completely. On weekends, Ruxana and her husband would visit. She'd bring her 2 children and fill the house with noise. She often hinted that her husband's small grocery store wasn't doing well. "Times are hard," she'd say, sipping tea. "If only people helped each other instead of judging." I remember one evening vividly. Ruxana was helping me fold fabric when she casually asked, "Bobby, can I borrow your CNIC for a day? I need to verify my SIM card. The shopkeeper says my ID has expired." I hesitated. "Mine? But why not yours?" "Oh, you know how these things are," she said with a laugh. "It's just for a formality. I'll return it tomorrow." Arif, overhearing from the sofa, said, "Just give it to her, Hina. It's fine." So I did. And that small act of trust became the rope she used to pull me into ruin. The first clue. A few weeks later, I began receiving strange calls. Unknown numbers. A man's voice asking about the payment schedule. "Mrs. Hina, just confirming, your first installment is due soon. Are you planning to pay through bank transfer or cash?" I froze. "What installment?" He hesitated, flipping through papers. "The one for your loan, ma'am. You took it last month." My throat tightened. "I didn't take any loan." He paused, his tone shifting. "Then you should come see us immediately. Because your name and CNIC are on every document." That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, my mind replaying every conversation with Ruxana. How she'd smiled when she returned my ID 2 days after borrowing it. How she'd said, "Thank you, Bobby. You're always so trusting." When I told Arif about the call, his reaction was muted. "Maybe it's a scam call," he said. "Don't overthink it." But the next morning, another call came. Then a message, official, with my name, loan ID, and due date. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. So I went to the lender's office myself. The discovery. The office was small, tucked between two electronics shops. A bored-looking clerk handed me a copy of the loan file. I flipped through it, my stomach sinking with every page. There it was. My CNIC copy. My photo. My signature. But the handwriting wasn't mine. It was too round, too careful. Still, it looked familiar. I remembered seeing it on birthday cards, on notes Roxana had once left on the fridge. The clerk looked at me with mild curiosity. "You're saying this isn't your loan?" "No," I said, my voice trembling. "Someone used my ID." He shrugged. "Well, ma'am, this signature matches your ID documents. And we verified with a family contact, listed as Roxana Raymond. She confirmed your relationship and vouched for you." My mouth went dry. "She what?" "She said you're her Bobby. She also mentioned that you took this loan for family reasons, and she'd insure the payments if needed." I stood there, clutching the file, feeling like the air had been sucked out of the room. When I got home, I confronted her. She was sitting in our living room, as if nothing had happened, her dupatta perfectly folded, her phone in hand. "Roxana," I said quietly, closing the door behind me, "why did you take a loan in my name?" She looked up unfazed. "Oh, you found out." My heart pounded. "You what?" "It's not a big deal, Bobby," she said almost lazily. "Your family. I needed the money urgently for the shop. I thought you'd understand. You forged my documents. That's fraud." "Fraud," she scoffed. "Please. I'll pay it back. You just signed for me, that's all." "I never signed anything." She stood up then, her voice rising. "Don't act like you're innocent. Everything my brother has, this house, your business, he gave you. You owe us." The words hit like stones. "I owe you," I whispered. "Yes," she snapped. "You live comfortably because of Arif. He's my brother. So what's wrong if I take a little help in your name?" I looked at her, this woman I'd welcomed into my home countless times, and realized I'd never truly known her. And that was the moment I decided I would not let her destroy my peace. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed, papers spread out before me. The loan documents, the payment schedule, and the proof of what Roxana had done. Arif was pacing. "Hina, calm down." She said she'll pay it back. I stared at him, stunned. "Arif, she forged my signature. She stole my ID. This isn't a misunderstanding, it's a crime." He exhaled heavily, sitting beside me. "You know my sister. She's impulsive. But she's not evil. If we involve the police, it'll destroy the family." There it was again, that word. Family. The word that always seemed to silence reason. I wanted to scream, to ask why her mistakes deserved protection while my name was on the line. But instead I said quietly, "If I don't pay, they'll take legal action against me." Arif rubbed his temples. "We'll figure it out. Give her a few days. She'll return the money." But Roxana didn't. The days of denial. For weeks she dodged me. Each time I called, she had a new excuse. "The shop is slow. My husband will sell the bike next week." "Don't worry, Bobby. You won't be in trouble." Meanwhile, the lender's calls grew more aggressive. One afternoon, a man came to my house with a receipt book. "Final notice," he said coldly. "Pay within 3 days, or we start legal process." I felt humiliated. My neighbors saw. My tailor clients whispered. That evening, I went to Roxana's house. Her husband looked surprised to see me. She came out, her tone sharp. "Why are you here?" "You know why." I held up the notice. "They'll file a case. You said you'd handle it." She rolled her eyes. "Oh, stop dramatizing. I told you I'll pay when I can." "When you can. Roxana, they'll put my name in the paper. My business, everything I've built, it'll be gone." She smirked. "Then pay it yourself. You're the one who has money these days. Consider it your contribution to the family." Her husband glanced nervously between us. Roxana Bas car. But she wasn't done. "You think you're better than us because you run a small boutique? You wear nice clothes and act saintly, but everything you have is because of my brother." I was shaking. "You think that gives you the right to steal my name?" She crossed her arms. "You owe us, Bobby. Maybe now you've paid your dues." I left before my anger consumed me. I didn't trust myself to speak another word. That night, I sat alone in the dark, staring at the loan papers under the faint glow of the lamp. My mind wrestled between two instincts: fight back or protect peace. If I reported her, it would break Arif's heart. But if I stayed silent, she'd keep winning. At dawn, I made my decision. I walked to the lender's office the next morning. "I'll pay," I said quietly. "But I need a copy of every transaction, every receipt in my name." The clerk nodded. "Of course, ma'am." I signed the repayment schedule myself this time. My true signature, shaking but steady. Each installment cut deep, not just in money, but in pride. Every month, I paid quietly. I didn't tell anyone except Arif. He helped, reluctantly, guilt twisting his face each time. Roxana didn't visit for months. But news travels fast in families. She'd heard I was paying the loan. Instead of shame, she wore it like a badge. "She's finally doing something responsible," she told relatives. After all, it was family money. Family money. The words burned. Still, I stayed quiet. Because sometimes silence is not weakness, it's strategy. A year passed. The final payment was due. I'd worked day and night, sewing extra orders, skipping small luxuries, saving every rupee. When I finally handed over the last installment, I felt something shift inside me. A kind of quiet strength I hadn't known before. But peace didn't last long. At a family dinner one evening, Roxana made a casual comment that froze everyone. "You know, Bobby should thank me," she said, smiling sweetly. If I hadn't taken that loan, she'd never learn how to manage money. The table went silent. Arif's mother frowned. "What loan?" Roxana laughed. "Oh, it's old news. I took a loan in her name last year. She was kind enough to pay it off for me. Such a generous sister-in-law." Everyone turned to look at me. My ears burned. "Is that true, Hina?" my mother-in-law asked, disbelief lacing her voice. I swallowed hard. Yes. But I didn't agree to it. She forged my documents. Gasps. Whispering. Roxana leaned back smugly. "Oh, please, don't act like a victim. It was just paperwork. She helped me out. Family helps family." Something inside me snapped. Months of restraint dissolved in one heartbeat. I stood up slowly. "No, Roxana. Family doesn't steal from family." Her smile faltered. I turned to the others. She took 8 lakh rupees using my ID. She forged my signature. And while I paid every rupee to clear her debt, she's been telling everyone I owed her. The room fell silent. Arif's mother looked horrified. "Is this true?" Roxana's husband shifted uncomfortably. I told her not to. But Roxana cut him off. "Enough. Why are you all making me the villain? I did it for us. Arif is my brother. His money is my money." I faced her squarely. "You used my name, my credit, my work. You didn't just take money, you took my dignity." Tears pricked my eyes, but my voice was steady. "I forgave you once. Never again." The room erupted. Her husband apologized to everyone. My mother-in-law scolded her, calling her selfish. For once, no one defended her. Not even Arif. Roxana left in anger that night, muttering curses under her breath. And I felt lighter. In the days that followed, family tension ran high. Some relatives called, asking for my side. Others quietly avoided us, not wanting to take sides. Arif tried to make peace, but I stopped him. "No," I said. "Some things aren't fixed with apologies." He nodded slowly. "You're right." That was the first time he'd said those words to me, and meant them. A month later, I received a letter from the same lender, confirming the loan was cleared and my record was clean. I framed it, not as a trophy but as a reminder that sometimes justice comes in silence, in perseverance, not in revenge. But Roxana didn't stop there. She began spreading stories, twisting the truth, saying I'd tricked her into debt. For a while it hurt. But people aren't blind forever. Truth has a way of surfacing. When her lies started to collapse, I didn't gloat. I just kept working, growing my boutique, living quietly. Because peace, once broken, becomes the most precious thing you can ever rebuild. A few months passed before the storm truly broke. By then, I had thought the worst was behind me. But I was wrong. One afternoon, I was helping a bride-to-be pick out fabric when she said something that made my heart drop. "Your sister-in-law runs a shop now, doesn't she?" she asked casually. "She said you helped her get started with a loan." I froze, scissors in hand. "She said what?" The woman smiled, unaware. "Yes. She told us her Bobby was generous, that you even took a loan for her business. Everyone at the market talks about how close you two are." I managed a faint smile, but inside, my blood ran cold. Roxana was not only lying. She was turning my pain into her glory. That night, I told Arif. He was quiet for a long moment before saying, "Then maybe people should hear your side too." It wasn't revenge that drove me anymore. It was clarity. I was done letting her rewrite my story. It started small. One of my boutique clients was also part of the local women's community group. They hosted events for small businesses and artisans. She invited me to speak about financial independence for women. At first, I hesitated. Me? Speak publicly? I wasn't a confident speaker. But something inside whispered, "This is your chance." So I said yes. On the day of the event, the hall smelled faintly of jasmine and tea. Women sat in rows, chatting softly, their colorful dupattas fluttering like quiet flags. When it was my turn, I stepped up to the microphone, my palms slightly damp. "I want to talk about trust," I began. "And what happens when it's broken, not by strangers, but by the people we call family." The room fell still. I didn't name Roxana. I didn't have to. I simply told the truth. How someone close had used my documents to take a loan, how I'd been forced to repay it, and how I chose not to retaliate but rebuild. When I finished, there was silence. Then applause, not the polite kind, but heartfelt. Some women came up afterward, telling me they'd faced similar betrayals. Sisters-in-laws, even friends who'd taken advantage of their trust. Word spread. Within weeks, a local newspaper ran a short column about the event. A housewife's courage. How one woman cleared a debt she never took. My name was printed there, alongside a small picture of me with my fabric designs. When Roxana read it, she was furious. She stormed into our house one evening, her face flushed. "So now you're playing the victim in public? You think you're some kind of hero?" I looked up from my sewing machine, calm. "I told the truth, Roxana. If that makes me a hero, maybe you should ask yourself why." Her voice trembled with rage. "You embarrassed me." "No," I said quietly. "You embarrassed yourself. I just stopped covering for you." Arif stepped in then. "Enough, Roxana. You've gone too far. You took advantage of her kindness. And of me. Don't come here again unless you're ready to apologize." For the first time, I saw something shift in her eyes. Not guilt, not yet, but shock. Her own brother had drawn a line. She left without another word. After that, her reputation began to unravel. Customers who'd once bought from her shop started avoiding it after hearing rumors. Not from me, but from people who finally knew the truth. Her husband, embarrassed and tired, closed the business quietly within months. I should have felt satisfied. I didn't. Instead, I felt sad. Sad that family could turn into strangers. Sad that greed could hollow out love so completely. But sadness doesn't mean regret. I didn't regret standing up for myself. One evening, nearly a year later, there was a knock at the door. When I opened it, I froze. Roxana stood there, thinner, her dupatta crumpled, eyes swollen as if she hadn't slept. "Can I come in?" she asked softly. I hesitated, then stepped aside. She sat on the sofa, her hands trembling. "I lost everything, Bobby. The shop, the money. Even people who used to visit stopped coming. They say I'm a thief." I said nothing. Tears filled her eyes. "I never thought it would go this far. I just wanted to help my husband. I didn't mean to ruin your name." I sighed, my anger long gone, replaced by something quieter. "You could have asked me, Roxana. I would have helped. But you chose lies over honesty." She nodded, wiping her face. "I know. I was jealous. You have peace, respect, and I." She broke off, her voice cracking. "I thought I deserved some of it too." That, I think, was the first honest thing she'd said to me in years. I didn't say, "I forgive you." But I did say, "Learn from this." Because once trust breaks, No loan in the world can buy it back. She nodded slowly. Then she stood murmuring, I'm sorry. It wasn't redemption. But it was a start. Months passed. Life returned to its rhythm, sewing, laughter, tea with neighbors. But something inside me had changed. I was no longer afraid of conflict. I had learned that silence is powerful. But truth, when spoken with dignity, is unstoppable. My boutique grew steadily. I even started helping other women manage small savings accounts, teaching them how to protect their finances, how to say no even to family when something feels wrong. Sometimes, Arif would look at me with quiet pride. You handled it better than I ever could, he said once. I smiled. Maybe. But I wish I hadn't had to. He nodded, looking thoughtful. Maybe this family needed to learn what boundaries really mean. And maybe he was right. Because even now, whenever Roxana visits on Eid or a family event, subdued, polite, never staying too long, I don't feel resentment. Just a kind of bittersweet peace. She no longer borrows things. She never mentions money. Sometimes she helps in the kitchen quietly, avoiding my eyes. That's enough. Some lessons don't need words. It's been 3 years now since that chapter of my life closed. Sometimes, when I sit in my boutique, surrounded by the quiet hum of my sewing machine and the rustle of fabric, I think about how strange life can be. How betrayal can come wearing the face of family, and how pain can slowly turn into power if you let it. The wall behind my work table still holds that old framed letter. The one confirming that my record is clear, that the debt is paid. I kept it there not out of pride, but as a quiet reminder. I survived something that was meant to break me. Roxana and I speak occasionally. Our relationship now exists in careful, polite exchanges, small talk during family dinners, a greeting on Eid, a phone call when someone's sick. It's not warm, but it's peaceful. And peace, I've learned, is a form of victory too. Arif has changed as well. He no longer dismisses my instincts or hides behind the word family. He's learned to listen, really listen, and to see that protecting the wrong person doesn't preserve peace. It only delays the truth. One evening, while having tea together, he said quietly, You were right, Hina. I kept thinking keeping quiet was the kind thing to do. But sometimes kindness means speaking up. I smiled. It took us both time to learn that. He reached across the table, placing his hand over mine. I'm proud of you. And in that simple gesture, all the unspoken regret, the guilt, the love, it was all there. I used to believe that family was unbreakable, that blood ties would always protect you. But now I know better. Family isn't who shares your name. It's who respects it. Sometimes, the people closest to you will mistake your silence for weakness. They'll take your kindness as permission. But the day you decide to stand up, calmly, firmly, without shouting or hate, that's the day they realize your strength was never in your words, but in your boundaries. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting what they did. It means freeing yourself from carrying it. I forgave Roxana, not because she deserved it, but because I deserved peace. Now, when I step into my boutique each morning, the smell of freshly brewed chai fills the air. My assistant hums softly as she cuts fabric. Sunlight filters through the window, painting golden shapes on the floor. Life feels simple again. Honest. Whole. Sometimes I still get messages from women who heard my story after it spread online. They tell me they found courage through it. To confront someone, to speak up, to rebuild. And every time I read those words, I think, maybe that's why it all happened. Maybe my pain was meant to become someone else's strength. In the end, justice didn't come from courts or shouting or revenge. It came from truth, from standing firm, from refusing to let lies define me. Because no one can steal your name forever. Not when you reclaim it with dignity. So tell me, if your own family betrayed your trust, would you stay silent to keep the peace? Or would you speak, even if it meant standing alone? Tell me in the comments, because your story might just be the one another woman needs to hear. And if mine touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe for more stories about truth, resilience, and the strength we find when the people we trust the least teach us who we really are.